Welcome to Headstones and Microphones Founder Stories, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation of history's most visionary founders. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these trailblazers. Now, let's meet our guest. Hey everyone, we are keeping the energy dialed up to 11 today because my guest is none other than the king of denim himself, a true San Francisco titan, Mr. Levi Strauss. Levi, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, Calvin.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours, Levi. Let's dive right into it. When you first conceived of your business, the world was a very different place. What was the exact moment you realized society was moving in a direction only you could see? And how did you convince the early skeptics?
Well, Calvin, when I arrived in San Francisco in the early 1850s, the gold rush was in full swing. Everyone was looking down at the dirt, hunting for gold. But I looked at the miners themselves. I saw hundreds of hardworking men tearing through their clothes in a matter of weeks. The exact moment for me was walking down by the wharves, seeing the sheer volume of ships arriving, and realizing that these men didn't just need shovels, they needed clothes built to endure the brutal labor of the mines. Skeptics thought I was just another merchant selling typical dry goods, but I convinced them by showing them the sheer utility of tough, heavy-duty canvas and denim. I brought the supplies directly to where the demand was surging.
That is incredible. Talk about looking at the macro trend. But leaving behind safety to build something entirely unproven is a massive gamble. What did your life look like the day you decided to go all in? And what was the core belief that gave you the courage to take that first step?
Before moving west, my life was that of an itinerant peddler in New York and Kentucky, carrying heavy packs of kettles, blankets, and sewing goods on my back. It was exhausting, safe, but limited. The day I decided to go all in and board a steamship for California via Panama, I was leaving behind the established comfort of my brother's wholesale business in Manhattan. My core belief was simple. Honest, hard work deserves a product of equal integrity. I knew that if I could establish a reliable West Coast branch to supply quality dry goods to this exploding population, the gamble would pay off.
It takes serious guts to step on that ship. In the absolute beginning, when you had no data, no capital, and no blueprint, what was the one truth you held onto that everyone else around you dismissed?
Everyone was obsessed with the quick wealth of the gold mines, Calvin. They dismissed merchandising as a secondary, slow business. The one truth I held onto was that the gold might run out, but the human need for durable goods, clothing, and reliable supplies never would. While thousands risked everything on a gamble in the riverbeds, I staked my future on the certainty of supporting the people doing the actual work.
And man, did that pay off. But it couldn't have been a totally smooth ride. Long before your company became a household name, you hit a wall where everything nearly collapsed. Take us back to that first major failure. What went wrong, and how did you find the willpower to restart?
In those early San Francisco years, navigating the volatile shipping market was incredibly treacherous. There was a time when supply chains were completely chaotic, and goods coming from the East Coast took months to arrive around the Horn or through Panama. We faced severe gluts in the market where prices collapsed, and sudden shortages that nearly emptied our pockets. What kept me going was accountability to my family and the community that welcomed me. I adjusted our inventory, diversified from tents into specialized garments, and worked hand in hand with my brother-in-law, David Stern, to rebuild our capital brick by brick.
Innovation often looks like madness to contemporaries. Was there a specific product, philosophy, or strategy you were utterly convinced would work, but the public initially rejected or ridiculed? How did you respond?
When my customer Jacob Davis, a tailor from Reno, wrote to me about using metal copper rivets to reinforce the pockets and stress points of men's work pants, it sounded unusual to traditional clothiers. Putting hardware on trousers? People thought it was strange and unnecessary. But I was utterly convinced it was a stroke of genius. When we secured the patent together in 1873, we didn't back down. We put those waist overalls out into the market, and once the miners and laborers realized their pockets wouldn't rip open under the weight of heavy rocks and tools, The ridicule turned into immense demand.
You truly turned metal into gold there. But behind the legendary name was a human being facing immense pressure, whether from financial panics, internal betrayal, or personal doubt. How did you shoulder that burden without letting the vision splinter?
The pressure in a rapidly expanding city like San Francisco was immense, especially during the financial anxieties and panics of the late 19th century. I shouldered that burden by anchoring myself in civic duty and philanthropy. When business pressure mounted, I focused my mind on helping others, funding scholarships at the University of California, Berkeley, and supporting local orphanages and congregations. By investing heavily in the well-being of my community and my workers, I kept my personal doubts from fracturing the company's core purpose.
That's a beautiful way to stay grounded. Let's talk about the people who helped you build this empire. Who were the very first people, beyond your immediate family, to buy into what you were doing? How did you convince early workers or customers to trust an entirely unproven concept?
The very first people were the local tailors, individual laborers, and small-town merchants throughout California and Nevada who trusted us to supply them. To convince them, I didn't rely on flashy speeches. I relied on the unyielding quality of the fabric. When we introduced the riveted pants, I convinced our early factory workers by providing a fair, respectful workplace. Many of them were immigrants trying to build a new life, just like I had. When they saw the care we put into manufacturing, they took immense pride in crafting the garments.
Love that. Take us to the exact moment where you felt the momentum shift. What was the specific milestone, contract, or breakthrough where you realized we aren't just going to survive, we're going to change everything?
The absolute turning point was the granting of our patent on May 20th, 1873. The moment Jacob Davis and I secured that official protection for the copper-riveted pocket openings and we began manufacturing them rapidly, the response was overwhelming. We went from a localized wholesale operation to opening dedicated manufacturing facilities within less than a decade. Seeing our waist overalls become the indispensable uniform of Western railroad workers, lumberjacks, and cowboys made me realize we had created something permanent.
You didn't just build a company, you built a distinct culture and philosophy that outlasted you. In the early days, when it was just a handful of people in a room, how did you instill that standard of excellence or service?
I spent my days right there on the floor, deeply involved in the day-to-day operations. I instilled excellence by example. I treated every clerk, tailor, and customer with the exact same level of respect, regardless of their background. We established a standard that a Levi Strauss product must never fail the person relying on it. If a seam wasn't right, we fixed it. Integrity wasn't a slogan for us. It was how we shook hands and did business every single morning.
History books often flatten a person's life into a neat, polished narrative. What is the biggest misconception people have about your journey, your character, or how your company was actually built?
Many people assume I was a rugged frontiersman or a tailor who sat down and stitched the very first pair of blue jeans myself. In truth, I was a merchant and a businessman. The invention of the riveted pant was a true partnership with a brilliant tailor, Jacob Davis. I provided the business acumen, the capital for the patent, and the distribution network, while he brought the specific technical innovation. Our success was born from collaboration, not a solo act in a vacuum.
Building an empire always requires a steep personal cost. Looking back at the entirety of your life, what was the hardest sacrifice you had to make for the sake of your vision? And was it ultimately worth it?
The hardest sacrifice was the quiet nature of my personal life. I never married, and I never had children of my own to pass my immediate name down to. I dedicated nearly every waking hour to the growth of the company, my nephews, and my philanthropic work in San Francisco. Looking back, it was a heavy sacrifice, but it was absolutely worth it. My business allowed me to provide security for my extended family, employment for hundreds of individuals, and lasting support for the community I loved so dearly.
If you could send a single sentence back through time to yourself on the very first day you started this venture, knowing every trial, triumph, and heartbreak that awaited you, what would you say?
I would tell myself, trust the strength of the fabric you sell. Treat every person with unwavering fairness. And remember that building a community is far more valuable than searching for gold.
Levi, do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
I simply want to say to your listeners that no matter how humble your beginnings may be, quality and integrity will always stand the test of time. Thank you so much, Calvin, for this truly wonderful conversation and for letting me share my journey once again. It has been an absolute honor.
The honor was entirely ours, Levi. Thank you for stopping by. Wow, what an incredible look into the hustle, the grit, and the partnership that built an international icon. Levi Strauss reminds us that sometimes the best way to win a gold rush isn't to dig for gold, but to support the people doing the heavy lifting. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast, Founder Stories. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.